Hello, fellow warriors against consensus reality, lovers of truth, wisdom, the esoteric path, slayers of two-faced hypocritical gobshites, lovers of irreverence and sarcasm. And of course, the rains are back. And who knows when they're going to finally stop, but I did enjoy my cafe session yesterday, so fuck yeah. And I do find it amusing, the above mentioned snooty, uptight gobshites, the look of disdain and disgust on their faces when they look at my extra long front lawn. I caught one really staring, and see, my bedroom window is near the thoroughfare, and I shouted out, "Have a good stare, you dopey gobshite. If it offends you so much, why don't you fucking cut it yourself?" Oh, people amuse me, especially with when it comes to misunderstandings. Yeah, I think today's going to be more of a social commentary rant. No real lessons come to mind, except I suppose allowing stupidity and blatant cringeworthy things you come across to make you glad that you're not that way. But in this day and age, with, as I said the other day, with information available at the click of a button, it's amazing how people just mindlessly go along with the propaganda machine programming. It is programming, it's not real information. You won't get the real truth from mainstream media, news, or any mainstream sources. It takes some really careful digging, because when you start to dig, you come across those really strange, head-scratchingly bizarre, the Jews take over everything kind of people, and the Illuminati, it's the great octopus whose tentacles are in every aspect of life, and they're really satanic, and blah 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 blah. It's incredible. It really is incredible. You come up with across some really stupid shit. So yeah, it takes extra use of discernment to borrow their terminology, to separate the wheat from the chaff. Yes, Abrahamic gobshite, there are some of us who can still outquote you, your use of your Bible any day of the week. Can you read the New Testament in the original Hellenic language? I can. Jeez. But it is what it is. Now, a slight disclaimer. When I use certain terminologies in my videos where I'm quoting what other people say, I'm not using these terminologies myself. For example, with the ultimate aim of taking the piss out of these people who use these terminologies. For example, in the old days in the US, of course in the US, where people use the term quote unquote coloured people, but now the woke brigade are trying to make that seem somehow respectable by turning it into quote people of colour unquote. So when I'm quoting that, I'm not using that myself. I'm taking the piss out of it, okay, in case there's a misunderstanding. All right. The fact that I need to make such disclaimers is a poor testimony to the level of collective human stupidity. But it is what it is. Also another one, especially living in this country, the use of indigenous, right? Yeah, where I come from, those traditions and those peoples are also indigenous. Okay? I mean, hell, my people were in Hellas long before the tribes crossed the ice bridge into Alaska and then into North America. So let's put that into context. Okay. And even the Australian Aborigines, they originally came from somewhere else themselves. They didn't just suddenly grow here like Cabbage Patch children. Okay? In the great history of humanity and the tribes of people moving around the globe from area to area, going back a long, long time, that goes together to form the history, the wonderful history of the tapestry we call humanity. All right? So let's get that clear as well. And a point I made in one of my comments responding to somebody. One thing, see, there's focus, and rightly so, in what Native Americans have gone through, where the cultural, religious, racial genocide and all the rest of it. Australia as well, and any number of places all over the world, countless places, unfortunately, all over the world. Yeah, that happened in Europe also. When the Abrahamic gobshites decided to infect everywhere like cancer. It's kind of funny about cancer. I purposely use that term because cancer cells are still cells. They're just bent on destroying all the other cells, healthy cells around them, and with the ultimate aim of destroying the body they inhabit, without a care for anything else they find around them. So to me, that purposely represents the Abrahamic gobshites. Not a care for any differing opinion, not a care for any people around them. You convert to our religion or we kill you. Can you feel the fucking love? Right? And these people were made to have the piss taken out of them. That's just a fact. So when people talk about indigenous traditions in Australia, North America, blah, 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 let's not forget Europe also, shall we? Because Europe also has its indigenous traditions, which were heavily attacked. Now, considering where my homeland is geographically, guess who was the first European country to cop it? Yes, that's right, we were. Now, I think it was in 427 or 437 CE. Oh, I know. Odin's movie reviews, I know. I'm using CE instead of AD. Shoot me, you hypocritical Roman Catholic cunt. So around, I believe it was either 427 or 437 CE, where the last bastion of classical Hellenic paganism was closed down. I'm talking about the academy in Athens, Plato's academy in Athens. The last bastion of classical pagan Hellenic learning was closed by the above mentioned Abrahamic gobshites, who by this stage moved the capital of the Roman Empire to the existing Hellenic city of Byzantion. O-N, not U-N. We're not fucking Latin speakers, right? O-S endings, not U-S endings. Okay? That's my pet hate, I have to say. And any kind of ancient history literature where they Latinize it to the U-S ending, that really pisses me off. But, and of course, that brought on the... was a result of eradicating what they thought was eradicating paganism and spreading the church like a cancer in Europe. What was the result? The Dark Ages. Because they didn't need all that pagan nonsense. They just needed Jesus, right? Which was a foreign, alien ideology in this area, this part of the world. And so it resulted in the Dark Ages. Gotta fucking love it. By their fruit you shall know them indeed. But thankfully in the folk traditions it still survived, albeit under a very thin veneer of Abrahamic gobshitism. See, how inclusive am I? I'm including all three strains of the Abrahamic gobshite tradition. See? How nice is that? Yes, I'm being tongue-in-cheek in case you haven't noticed. Fuck's sake. But yeah, it did survive, regardless of the poor Gnostics. They copped it hardest of all. They were hounded through centuries, no matter where you went throughout any part of the world, from the Middle East to all through various parts of Europe, the Bogomils, whomever, because they were a constant reminder of the true origins of the Christian branch of the Abrahamic gobshites. No, they were a constant reminder of what their religion originally was, and of course they didn't like that, so they thought that they destroyed everything by destroying such things as the Great Library of Alexandria. Only to find in 1945, I believe it was, in a place called Nag Hammadi, a few jars of clay jars held writings that some of these people decided to hide away because of the increasing horrific persecutions they were experiencing. And so they had their last laugh in 1945 when these writings were rediscovered, which is kind of hilarious. It was their ultimate Nelson from The Simpsons going, ha ha, right? I just find that funny. But they were a constant side in the Abrahamic gobshites, thorn in the Abrahamic gobshite side. But funny thing is now, the indigenous traditions of Europe, which did somehow survive in the various folk traditions throughout all the different countries of Europe, kind of funny, even in my homeland, still survived under a very, very thin veneer of Christianity. And of course, I think in the Celtic tradition was a brigid who became a saint. Brigid. And of course, Dionysus in my homeland became Saint Dionysus. And of course, his feast day involves a wine festival. No, you can't make this shit up. Seriously. And even to this very day in the Orthodox tradition, where they have a feast day tradition called, you Hellenic speakers will understand, Tu Ayanu Tu Lambava, right, where they jump over lit fires, which is an ancient tradition honouring, among other things, Hephaestus, right? Let's just slap St. John on it and let's call it Christian now. Meanwhile, in places like Iceland, recently they built a heathen temple, the first one in almost 1,000 years. So thankfully the indigenous traditions are coming back. The Abrahamic gobshites did not destroy them. So that's good to see people coming back, reconnecting with their ancestral path, with their ancestral cultural soul, which connects them, hopefully, once again with the land and the ancestors and the cultural soul, which is needed now more than ever. No, we're not all the same people. We're not all the same culture. The same faceless, passive, mindless group of little consumers wearing the same things, liking the same things. No. Cultural differences are to be celebrated and encouraged, because otherwise it would be a fucking boring world if we all did the same things, believed the same things, and looked the same and acted the same. So differences. Oh, and by the way, the and one thing I find funny as far as traditions go, in this day of feminism, like Marxist feminism, which makes the mouthy modern woman who has disconnected herself with her wonderful feminine nature, they want to infect the men's YMCA and the Boy Scouts and all the rest of these men-only places. Funny how in traditional Australian Aboriginal tradition they had separate men's business and separate women's business, and that was honoured and respected by all. Funny that, and yet they call this progress, right? No, it means you're becoming slaves to your 5 cents illusion world. You know the attitude. If I can't experience it with my 5 senses, it doesn't exist. So in other words, you're closing your eyes, you're putting your fingers in your ears saying la 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 la. Nothing else exists. That's fucking stupid. Because as I say, till I'm blue in the fucking face, we are infinite awareness inhabiting our current meat bags. Nothing more, nothing less. Yes, I think I'll leave it there. I have been enjoying the wonderful music of an English gentleman called Damn the Bard, D-A-M-H, the Bard. Really, really good stuff. I'm really, the man is pagan and has released some quite lovely, as the English would say, quite cracking music. So yeah, enjoy and embrace differences, because otherwise it would be fucking boring. I don't know about you, but eating the same things wherever you go in the world would be fucking boring. But anyway, to speak the truth is a lonely path. The sarcastic, irreverent, heathen hammer wielding lone wolf on guitar. Out.